Hello and welcome back to the Beyond Respect and to another edition of NXT Out of 10. Vengeance Day was just 10 days ago, but the Developmental brand is already preparing for its next big event, Stand and Deliver on April 4th. We also have Booker T Appreciation Night for some reason, and we have 3 world title matches on the show, so a lot happening. And we start things off with the first one, the women's title bout featuring Sol Rika, Zarya and JC Jane. Will Zarya recently breaking out, there was an extra layer of drama added. Even with Jane being the one holding the gold, it felt like Zarya and Rika were mainly focused on each other, especially in the early stages. Each competitor leaned into their strengths here. Zarya used her power, Rika used her agility, and Jane used her heel tactics and her teammates at ringside to gain the advantage. The feud between the two will obviously lead to a big singles match, likely at Stand and Deliver, so it wasn't surprising to see their issues preventing them form of winning. This is a decent match with a couple of standout spots, but Jane was able to escape with her championship thanks to interference from her fatal influence cohorts. Pretty predictable, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. As we then saw Ricky Saints come to the ring to talk about recent setbacks, but said he and Ethan Page know how to pivot, and that's why they won their tag match against Hendry and Bourne. All Ego joined him in the ring and reminded him that it was he who pinned Hendry last week, implying he should be the one to get the title shot. Both men wanted to call out Hendry, which brought out the chance to respond. He started taunting Page and Saints while planting seeds for them to fight each other, but they ended up attacking Hendry instead. After the champ took both of them out, Johnny G came to the ring and dropped all 3 men. The bearded Don had his sights out on gold. Even though nothing about the segment was surprising, it did a good job setting up multiple contenders for the big show in a few weeks. As we then moved on to Los Americanos versus the Vanity Project, the booking of the Americanos is kind of strange. On the main roster they're heels, but they've been booked as both faces in AAA, and that appears to have carried over to NXT facing a heel trio. The first half of this was a high energy back and forth exchange. Both teams were looking strong, but the Vanity Project had the upper hand heading into the break. If WWE is going to insist on keeping this fake luchador gimmick, then it's how the group needs to be used. They're all great wrestlers, so letting them show that it's going to keep fans more invested in them than just comedy stuff. All 6 competitors brought their best to Texas this week, but in the end it was Los Americanos who scored the win thanks to Grande using a loaded mask hit a headbutt for the pin. This was much better than it had really any right to be, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. As then we decided to move on to the Booker T Appreciation Night. He has become a feature in NXT, but this segment was designed to celebrate more the world champion. A special video aired highlighting what he'd accomplished, with some NXT talent sharing their memories of his career. Book's family was in the ring when Vic presents him with a flag. Ever since Keanu Reeves arrived on the scene, he had issues with Booker, so it wasn't surprised he came out to spoil the festivities and took out some security guards. 2 of Booker's students tried to intervene, but it took Jasper Troy to make the save. The segment did 2 things. Not only did a good job honouring Booker, but it made Troy and Carl look more important than they had since arriving in NXT, and it's also going to lead to a match as well between the two, which is going to be good. Will Booker T get involved? Who knows? But yeah, intriguing. As we then moved on to the Women's Speed Championship match between Fallon Henry and Ren Sinclair. Since this was for the bout, the time limit was 5 minutes instead of the usual 3, but there still isn't much time, so both women were going to go in as quick as possible. Sinclair didn't need the full 5 minutes. She was able to make Kennedy tap out to her submission finisher with 1:20 left on the clock. These quick bouts are really an ideal way to feature a superstar, but they did well with what they had to work with, and the feel-good moment of Sinclair winning in her home state was a nice way to cap it off and all. So yeah, overall I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. As we then moved on to Hank and Tank versus Both Right, this bout may not have had goal on line, but the winners become the number 1 contenders. Stacks and Connors represent Birthright against Hank and Tank, and they didn't wait for their bells to begin their assault. Hank and Tank used their size to control the smaller opponents, but Stacks and Connors had numbers on their side, with Dempsey, King and Grace at ringside. This was a high energy match, and Birthright looked like a formidable team, but they still had to resort to dirty tricks to get the win. It was a decent match, but overbooked for what it was, but I think, yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by a new team. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Moving on then to the main event, and a feud between Tatum Paxley and Lizzie Dane came to head this week, fighting for the North American Championship inside the steel cage. Dame attacked Paxley before they were in the cage and stomped on her against the steel set. She rolled Paxley into the ring, grabbed a chair before joining her and officially beginning the match. The champ fought back and gained the upper hand before they spent a long time fighting on the top rope ahead against one of the cage walls. This bout was fantastic. But they did a good job of using the stipulation to their advantage. It felt like they relied too much and forget about much else. So both women worked hard and took some big bumps. So they had plenty of stuff to enjoy. Dane put up a great fight, but Paxley preferred to retain the title, and Blake Monroe attacked her afterwards, setting up an intriguing next feud. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. And overall, NXT this week gets a 6 out of 10 from me. It might not have been the show of the year, but it was above average in 2 ways. The Booker T segment I thought was really good, leading to an interesting singles match between Carl and Troy. On top of that, the majority of the show is focused on the women's division with 3 title matches. Sinclair was the only challenger to leave with a new belt, but I think we've got some intriguing feuds coming up for both the main women's titles. Stand and Deliver is definitely shaping up nicely ahead of April 4th. That's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.